Today the topic is the making of the constitution. The making of the constitution is not an easy task. Before going into the details of making of the constitution, let us discuss about what is constitution. Constitution is a fundamental document which states all the rules and regulations of the land of a nation. Constitution is a fundamental document which states all the rules and regulations of a nation, of that particular land, of that particular region. Every nation has its own constitution. The constitutionally valid points are called like legal rights. Now, moving on to the discussion of constitution, let us analyze what are the constitutions of Nepal and Japan so that we get a clarity on what does a constitution mean to us. Let us see here, the Nepal, the neighboring nation of us. The Nepal is located on the northeastern part of India, which shares a boundary, and 5 states of India shares boundary with Nepal. Now, moving on to the constitution of Nepal. Nepal is a nation which was ruled by monarch. They are having hereditary monarchy where the people have resorted against it, revolted against it, have done many rallies against them and gathered at many places and showed their dissatisfaction. So finally from 1951, various times the people of Nepal have showed their dissatisfaction and moved on towards against the will of the king. So finally in 2007, the interim government or the king came down to accept the constitutional setup or to give complete democracy towards the Nepal, and king becomes a nominal representative whereas the parliament becomes the supreme. So in that process of its journey, in 2007 when the parliamentary setup was formed, they came up with establishment of constitution. In the constitution, whatever we say, constitution gives us idea of 2 points. One is what are the rules and regulations that are present in that particular nation, and the second one is what are the ideals and the goals of the nation that are to be reached. Coming to the first point, what are the rules and regulations? The rules and regulations are entrusted with the responsibilities. You can get an idea about the fundamental rights, the directive principles of state policy, the powers of the prime minister, the powers of the president, the powers of the legislative assembly, the powers of the parliament, the powers of the president, the powers of the supreme court, the powers of the entire members of parliament, the powers of individual members of parliament, the powers of the opposition leaders. All these together are entitled in the constitution. Not only these, the constitutional limits are also entitled here, which are considered as crimes are also considered in the constitution. This is the first point which is covered in our constitution of any nation. Moving on to the second point, what are the goals or the ideals that is the nation going to project it towards its constitution? For example, like equality, liberty, fraternity, these are the principles which are going to be projected in the constitution. So when you read a constitution of any nation, you get the idea of the fundamental duties or the rights or whatever you get in the nation, along with the goals or the ideals which the nation wants to or will or shall be in pursuing them in the further process or in the future of for their nations. In this process, Nepal achieved its independence in 2007, formed into a parliamentary system, then got converted itself into the constitutional setup. Even now, the constitution of Nepal was in framing in the 2007 till date, because the constitution has its own loopholes in the Nepal background. We shall come back to Nepal, but before come back to Nepal, we will discuss about Japan. Japan was a nation which got the parliamentary setup in 1946 after the Second World War came to end, and Japan was defeated in the hands of the Allied powers. Finally, they dropped the king's autonomy and monarchy was given up, and we got the presidential parliamentary system, not the presidential system. Now moving on to the parliamentary system, king is present even today also, but the king powers are just a nominal representation, just like the Britain queen. Now the powers are vested with the prime minister of the Japan. So they are also having the prime ministerial government. Now what is the constitution of Japan mean for us? The Japanese constitution also clearly states the same ideology of what the other constitutions frame for us. Generally, the basic rules of the constitution of Japan are like all are treated equally, everybody is given the equal opportunity to entertain and to progress in their future, and they also clearly specify that all the resources of the nation of Japan have to be utilized properly. All the people's efforts should be utilized properly, and they have to respect the interest of the other nations. The Japanese also expressed the view in their constitution that the government is a sacred trust given or by the people towards its representatives. The power of the government is nothing but the people have bestowed some power in the representatives, and the representatives in the interest of the larger community act only on behalf of the people. So they have to be firm in their actions, and there should be in their mindset that they are going to do a larger benefit for their people. That is a clear idea of what the Japanese constitution gives us a picture of first point. Moving on to the second point, they also respect all the other nations as they respect their own nations, and they also made a statement in their constitution that they will try to respect their nations as well as they will ask the other nations also to respect their principles. In the wake of these two world wars, where the other interests of the nations were not respected properly, where the Germans were not interested properly in the World War I defeat, Treaty of Versailles, so Japanese government made a clear statement that we have to respect the ideals of the other nation as we respect our nation's ideals. So in this point of time, we can come to the clarity that as per the experiences, as per the leaders' wish and the intention of that moment of time, we get the ideals got struck into the constitution, which can be further be amended, but most of the times the basic structure of the constitution will not be amended. So now coming back to Nepal, what made the Nepal till now not to yet to form a constitution? Even if Japanese people can form it by 1946, and now from 2007 the Nepal people are trying to form a government. They already formed the government. Now they are going to write a constitution, to draft a constitution. The world's largest constitution in the entire world or in the entire globe, the bulkiest constitution is the Indian constitution, which was written in just 3 years. So what made the Nepal people to wait so long? From 2007, it's 2014 now running, and even then they are falling short of making a constitution for themselves. And even in Nepal, we don't have much diversity as we have in our nation. So what is the point that is binding them or not making them to move on to form a separate constitution for them, or what are the principles they are going to struck up here? Because we'll discuss about that.